Hello, everyone. So it's good to get this session going. We have got a panel discussion today, right now, which is really going to be riveting for all of us. This is really about the future of kind of everything going on in learning, a panel discussion. So, John, are you our designated moderator? So let's kick it off. Let's give it over to John.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much. And I just wanted to just say thank you to the panel for joining us, particularly Michelle Reid-Powell, who is joining us today, and she's the president and CEO of the CARA Group, and and it's a great joy and treat to have you join us. The conversation today is really about sort of continuing the conversation about the fact that the L&D community is experiencing significant disruption and change. And we have to, as part of that, re-examine our role in that and what we do. And as professionals and lifelong learners, of course, we accept that learning is changing, but what are the skills that we need and the capabilities that we need to develop to be a part of that? So what we've done is we put together a blue ribbon panel. I love that expression. And Mike, welcome. Thank you for joining us as well. Mike and Michelle work together, so brilliant to have you on the panel as well. We've put together a blue ribbon panel. Of course, Michelle Reid-Powell, as I've already introduced, Mary Jo Anderson, who is she is running the she's the director of Ferrero's Corporate University, based in Luxembourg. So welcome. And of course, we have Kimberly Seeger, who is learning and performance specialist and an executive coach, and Jennifer Rogers, who is the chief discovery advocate and specializes in developing emerging leaders. So we've got the full range of individuals: academics, coaches, practitioners, and corporate university heads. So we've got this is a great panel, and we really appreciate you taking the time to do that. What I'd like to do, if I can, is, and hopefully I haven't forgotten anybody, what I'd like to do, if I can, is I just want to kick off with a couple of questions and then invite a few of the community to also submit their questions to us as well. So the first question that I have for you, and if I may, because Michelle Reid-Powell is joining us for the first time, Michelle, may I start with you? Would that be all right? So the first question is, thank you. How is the current disruption impacting you in your role as at CARA Group? How are you seeing this impacting you?
Well, the CARA Group is a learning and development consultancy. And so it's impacting us because we supply consultants to the Fortune 1000. And so when we look at what their needs are, we're downstream from that, right? And so we need to make sure that we're upskilling our employees in order to deliver on the expectations of our clients. And I would say the biggest disruption, and this is no surprise to anyone, is the conversion of so much courseware over the past year from face-to-face instructor-led training to virtual training. And I was just on Mary Jo's presentation. Mary Jo, how many courses did you say you had to move from instructor-led training to virtual in like 6 weeks?
Yeah, 26. So it
26.
Yeah, it was around Easter time too, which, as you can imagine, is quite a big holiday in Europe. So yeah, my team walked through fire.
So this is a Herculean effort that our clients, who tend to be leaders in the learning and development space, have lived through and had to walk through over the past year. And so they called upon the CARA Group. Well, actually, most of them did what Mary Jo did, which is a Band-Aid. right? They jumped in and they said, okay, what can we do to make sure that learners don't stop learning? We still have people coming in. We have to onboard. We have to upskill. Friend of mine at Deloitte, she's like, tax season doesn't stop just because, we have COVID. So we usually brought in all our new tax consultants, and we had to teach them in a face-to-face. How are we going to do it? So what's happened now, I think, the trickle-down impact of that, and I promise I'll let other people chat in 1 minute. I'm almost done. But the trickle-down impact of that is we did the Band-Aid, right? We just took everything and we dumped it into a new bucket, and we were like, okay, now we can, but everybody knows that the design for an instructor-led event is radically different than effective design for blended learning or for virtual learning, right? And so now what's happening is our clients are coming to us and saying, hey, how do I reimagine the courses to really apply to a virtual environment for maximum effectiveness? And so what does that look like? How many hours can somebody look at the screen before their brains explode? And all of those things. And so really back to the core of excellent instructional design, but also melding that with what is the learner experience and what's their mindset and what is the flow of their work. And so we have this really joyful, if you ask me, and creative opportunity to do what we've wanted for a long time, which is to design for the learner and their journey, and choose the modalities at our disposal to do that.
Michelle, thank you for that. Can I invite Jennifer to share her thoughts as well in terms of how is current disruption impacting you and your business and in the L&D community?
So in what I'm doing as, a coach and working with organizations to create exactly what Michelle was just talking about, excellent instructional design, because people are still learning. And there was I don't know that I could say it, John, any better than Michelle just did, but it really is. I think that what I have seen is that for a good period of time, when all of this pandemic started, we were just kind of like, okay, we'll lock down for a couple months, and then everything will just magically go back to normal. So we don't need more than a Band-Aid. And then I know, at least for me, in July, August, I was kind of like, okay, this is not a vacation anymore. I've got to, work has still got to get done. And I think that is what organizations are also finding too. The Band-Aid was fine for a minute, but now we've got to make sure that we have systems and things in place. And I think it's really made everybody take stock of what is really important, and how we do things and how we meet the learner, and really looking at, especially with L&D workforces that are being impacted as far as people losing their jobs. How do we work with what we have and create really, really impactful opportunities for our learners, for our customers, for our employees? How do we make it really impactful and really get down to the root cause, what's really important?
Oh, Jennifer, thank you for that. Mary Jo, I saw you sent us a message. This was the big education point for my stakeholders. Why can't you take a 5-day in-presence course and throw it online? So share with us a little bit about how that, obviously that's been a significant impact for you during this time.
Yeah, well, in a weird way, to be honest with you, John, we have capitalized on pushing a blend in COVID that probably would have taken me 10 years to do. When I joined the organization, it was we had just launched a learning experience system, and it was kind of like, oh, that online stuff is the stuff you do after hours, but the real stuff happens in the classroom. And we were like, hang on a minute, we have to kind of do some education. So when COVID hit, it was like everything in class was canceled. Across the globe, we have 53 different sites and locations where we do training, both at the plant level, the factory plant level, and then at our corporate offices. And so it was kind of like, okay, what do we do now? And I said, okay, guys, it will take some time. We'll start canceling the in-presence training. We'll start converting. It will be a little clunky. Bear with us. We were pretty open in terms of the communication with the organization, saying this is not going to be seamless. We have a lot of internal subject matter experts because we have 12 functional academies that we run, which has deep ingrained company know-how in it. So our subject matter experts and our facilitators, who are largely internal, freaking out because lovely people, but they weren't so adept at in-presence learning. And now you're throwing this tech at them, and we don't even know the tech so much because we haven't really used Teams so much because we were WebEx before. So the technology created some speed bumps. And then once we got over that, we just did a little bit of a dance. And to your point, John, I was educating my stakeholders saying, okay, guys, now we are blended learning on speed because we have to do this. And we still can't wait to get back into the classroom. And in fact, I've written up a return to the classroom set of guidelines and revised them 3 or 4 times. We probably will not be back in the classroom if we're lucky. Maybe before Christmas this year we'll return. That being the case, we're continuing to do the dance. We're continuing to convert with partners like Kara and other organizations. And super lucky to be in this space. Selfishly, it has helped me foster an agenda, but I know that hasn't been the case for everybody.
Thank you very much, Mary Jo. I wanted to invite Mike, who's also on I see he's muted at the moment, so I'm putting him on the spot a bit. But I wanted to, because I know you're approaching this from a slightly different dimension, because you're sort of acting as that bridge between L&D professionals and then also the sort of organizations that you're working with and trying to engage with. What have you seen? What are some of the big ideas that are coming up and the big challenges?
Thanks, John. That's a great question. What I'm seeing the most, especially from our Fortune 500 clients and our upper mid-market clients, is really just that they need partners to help them understand their business needs and almost partners to help them, as Mary Jo was talking about, foster the new agenda and help people understand how they can still change, learn, and grow. So there's what we've seen is it's actually going now outside of the learning and development profession, and we're going to other stakeholders now. We're able to bridge that gap now. We're talking to COOs, CIOs, CTOs, and saying, hey, we need to build this bridge back into the learning organization. Yes, you could just roll out a set of directions on how to do this set of things in your new digital transformation, or you can really put change management and learning and development to the forefront to make sure your project is successful. And so we've seen a lot more of that, especially since the advent of COVID, and that's really helped out quite a bit.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. I wanted to ask, we've only got a few more minutes left, and I'm just sort of scanning through the feed at the moment, looking for, there's a couple of questions that have popped up. But while I'm sort of scanning that and looking for that, I wanted to ask you, because a part of what we're doing during this today, as we move in towards tomorrow and Friday, is we're sort of exploring the skills. What are the things that L&D's professionals need to do to remain relevant, going forward? And if I may, can I start with Jennifer, because I think so much of this is about mindset, and I wanted to invite you to kind of, and also because you're doing a lot of work with the young professionals and individuals like that. So how do we remain relevant and given the changes that are happening, this accelerated pace of digitization?
I think that especially with our young professionals and thinking about this from the lens of those emerging leaders and those people who maybe aren't necessarily in a leadership role right now, but I think leadership happens at every level of the organization. And really building the confidence and the capability. So I think you talked about competencies and capabilities in some of our information, John. And I think competency is, that's I know how to do this. And kind of capability is I can do this, and here is the level that I can do it. I can demonstrate it for you, that I know that I can do this. And so I think really focusing in on capabilities and remembering, I think Jessica mentioned it earlier in the session, that there's lots of stuff, people are juggling lots of stuff, and I think we have got to get away from that mindset of, our people come to work and they do their work and then they go home. We are multifaceted human beings with families and jobs and dogs and children, and we really have to embrace the human aspect of our people. So I hope that helps.
Jennifer, if I might, I couldn't agree more. And when we think about the characteristics of leaders, the competencies of leaders, and you made a great point, everyone can be a leader, right? Either of a self or team or of an organization. How do we lead putting our humans first, right? How do we consider wellness? Mary Jo mentioned in her previous presentation, psychological safety. And you mentioned, all the things that people are juggling. Women are leaving work, particularly in the States, women of color are leaving the workplace at alarming rates. So how do we as leaders understand the human and manage to that? Because that's different than how many of us grew up learning how to lead. So how do we manage for wellness? How do we manage for diversity? How do we lead diversity in our organizations? How do we lead innovation? And how do we lead change? Those are really important competencies today more than ever. And it's the next practice. So in some cases, we don't have best practices, and we have to join forums like this where we can talk and we can, dream and think of the new future of competency for our leaders.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. And I wanted to, and thank you for that, Michelle. I wanted to throw the question over to Mary Jo, but I also, before I invite you to answer the question that's on the table, which is about what L&D professionals and others need to learn, I wanted to also mention that there was a shout out from Suzanne Mulder, who's a member of our group, and we love Suzanne. And she asked a specific question about your phased hybrid model for when you see yourself moving back to something that resembles a blend again post-COVID. And she was just wondering, are you going to be limiting capacity, or are you going to run more frequent classes? Or are you leaving everything open in terms of how you're managing the university at this point?
Honestly, John, we put together a bunch of different scenarios, right? All of a sudden, I feel like I'm getting a degree in logistics. We're going to force the blend, so we won't throw the baby out with the bathwater. We have really, so we had a 5-day leadership program for our new senior managers, and we won't revert to the 5 days in presence again. We will probably do a blend of 2 days remote, 2 days in class. We will have guidelines. I mean, if we were to bring everybody back tomorrow, everything would be socially distant. People would be required to have negative COVID tests. I mean, as the impact of the vaccine comes through, if we have international sessions, will we be asking for that? I don't know. So we're kind of dabbling a little bit, but the goal is to keep the blend. It isn't to kind of revert to what we were used to, because our online usage of our catalogs has skyrocketed. We are doing a lot to pitch our learning through Yammer, and our big proponent now has been to meet the learners where they are now. So while I love some of the stuff that's coming out on mindfulness, our learners aren't really asking for that right now. They're like, how do I work efficiently with a 2-year-old sitting on my lap type thing? So I think this is what we're dealing with, and it's not my job to push an agenda that they're, much like our internal sales groups. I'm not going to try and put on the shelves what people aren't going to buy. It's just not the right time for that right now. So we're reading the tea leaves. We're taking pulse checks, and we're trying to learn from our experience and see where we go.
And just in terms of your opinion on the sort of future skill set mindset for L&D, what do you see? How do you see us becoming relevant, remaining relevant?
Yeah, from my side, this might be kind of provocative and a little bit controversial, but even before COVID, we saw that Amazon was looking at direct to hire programs, bypassing the secondary education institutions and coming directly from high schools into a university. Now, this would be pretty advanced for us at Ferrero. We don't hire that many new grads every year, but we're kind of kicking off a little bit, are there some roles in our organization where we could take somebody who has a high school degree and we make them Ferrero, we add the Ferrero flavor to them, and we don't necessarily need them to undertake a 4-year degree. Now, I also sit on an advisory council for one of my alma maters, so I might be fired from that position for saying this, but there is an interesting play for a corporate university. How much do we get involved sooner rather than later in that talent play at the younger levels of life? And are there some positions where the corporate university could make that person into the right candidate, the right future person for an organization by bypassing having to go through the stair steps of a higher education experience? Who knows?
Yeah, I would even say higher education sometimes does not graduate work-ready candidates. And so even if the first step is, getting into higher education and forming closer bonds with industry and higher education, that might be, step one even.
Yeah. Oh, that's brilliant. Thank you for that. Wonderful insights. I'm going to do 2 things right now, if I can. First is I want a huge shout out to Cara Group and to Mike, who was one of the principal architects for our panel today. So thank you, Mike. You were amazing. This is a great session, a great panel, really blue ribbon. Regrettably, we don't have any more time. And the second is, in addition to me saying thank you. Oh, and Kim, I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to invite you into the conversation. I know there's some technical problems there. I do apologize for that. But if I may, can I leave the last word with you, Liz? Do you have any final thoughts for us? And Kim, I will make it up to you at the future session, I promise.
Wonderful. I love it. Well done. Thank you very much, John. And I think I just loved this discussion. And I think some really important points were brought across. And I loved that, Michelle, you talked about one of the biggest aspects is the aspect of how women have been hit. Particularly and also people of color, and this aspect of this is diversity in different ways that we haven't been considering it, and it is an elephant in the room that's not being addressed. We're on Friday. That's one of the things we're going to be talking about, or what are some of those unspoken themes in D&I that we need to address, because this is really impacting the human side in particular. So I really appreciate you bringing that important topic to the table. And I couldn't agree more. Future of learning is the place to be. There's a lot of different demands on us, but also a lot of different demands, like Mary Jo said, to pick the people up where they are and how can we support them in their moments of need, so that they can then, like Jennifer said, not only have the competence, but also the capabilities and the belief and the self-agency to say, okay, I can do that. So wonderful panel. Thank you so much. We will continue with these questions for sure. Absolutely loved it. And to be continued 100%. All right. Thanks, everyone. And excellent job, John. Appreciate it so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.